Stretch. Yeah. Okay, and we are live streaming, so we are. I know. I heard. Yep. It says 4 are watching. So.
It's not far there. Okay. This way, just my foot is in it.
It's just a formal, they invite the panelists. Please go ahead. Yes.
You're allowed. Doesn't advertise. I don't know if you watch branding, so we are. Yeah, I know. That's right. Starbucks. We'll say it's green tea.
So good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our lab session. I think this is lab session number 4 or 5? 4. This is something we do every year or so when we have a topic that we want to explore more deeply. Maybe it's something we're working on, or maybe it's in the zeitgeist, and we curate an audience. So thank you for coming today so early to join us and this incredible panel to talk about the role of voice-enabled solutions and healthcare. So before we get started, my name is Sarah Holovic. I'm the CEO of Luminary Labs, and I'm a very informal person. So if you guys have questions along the way, I'd say ask us. I want to know who here is using a voice-enabled, like an assistant at home, like who uses an Amazon Echo? Raise your hand really high. Okay, great. And how many people use like Google Home? Wow, just one. Well, I would expect you to use them all. Okay, yeah. And that's pretty much what like the market penetration looks like right now. What about like Siri? Does anyone you guys have your relationship with Siri? What else? Anything else? You guys use Google Assistant on your phone? Okay, so like all in all, almost everyone here is using some type of voice-enabled solution, which is interesting. So I was really excited to have Lisa join us. And Lisa, I'm going to introduce yourself, because when you had told me that you've been looking at the space for the past couple of years, I was like, oh, we have got to get you here. So thank you for traveling. If you could introduce yourself first, please.
Sure. Hi, I'm Lisa Sunan. I'm head of GB Ventures Healthcare Fund. Been a venture capitalist for about 20 years. And I also teach and write a blog called Venture Valkyrie, a podcast called Tectonics, including I have started a nonprofit called C-Suite that is oriented to matching women leaders in healthcare with mentors.
C-Suite. Ifoma?
Hello everyone, my name is Ifoma. I'm a professor at Cornell University's IOR School. Also a faculty associate at the Berkeley Applied Center for the study of internet society at Harvard University. Much of my research has been on health data, specifically the protection of health data, and especially as it applies to employees. So I've looked at wellness programs and published in the Harvard Business Review and other places like that, regarding how that protect health data, particularly to avoid issues of discrimination and all that issues associated with
John?
Good. Hi, my name is John Brownstein. I am a professor at Harvard Medical School and the Chief Innovation Officer at Boston Children's. My research has really been focused on consumer technologies and how they can have an impact on understanding population health, as well as how they can drive better access to care. So a lot of the work has been focused on our day-to-day interactions with technologies and sort of digital breadcrumbs that we leave behind to help sort of form a better sort of what we call digital phenotype, but then also thinking about how to use those technologies to drive better access and barriers. So,
Ifoma and John both served on the Alexa Diabetes Challenge jury, which convened last night. More to come. Stay tuned. Sponsored by Merck, and follow AD Challenge if you'd like to be first to know who won. It's a very subtle plug, not so subtle. Okay. Yeah, they know who won, but you do not for at least a couple of weeks. But, so one of the things that most people ask me when we talk about working with voice-enabled solutions is like, what would I use it for? Because our mind instinctively goes to things like playing music, which is helpful, but is it actually supremely useful? Does it have utility? So John, coming from the background of somebody who's explored lots of emerging technologies, why is voice so useful?
Yeah, I mean, I think just like any new technology that's emerging, it's sort of captivating consumers. Like the emergence of the App Store and, on iOS, I mean, that was an amazing opportunity to start delivering content in new ways and making it easier for patients to get important information. The emergence of voice is now a new modality, a new sort of channel that you can start to push information and content. So, we see these new tools. We see it in parallel industries like Domino's. You can order your pizza on this device. Like, why not be able to also access important information about care? So, we, for instance, developed a tool called KidsMD very early on, which is all about driving important information to parents about helping their kids and providing decision support tools around different important conditions. So that's very clear that if it's something that's a device you use day to day, there's no reason why that can't also be a device that you use in the course of sort of the education journey. We'll talk about other examples as we go, but there's also many applications beyond just consumer engagement as you sort of move into sort of clinical practice where the use of voice can really enable engagement with patients, it can enable better flow and use of access to information. So sort of there's many possibilities that emerge once we get into this running.
So the big question with any emerging technology is it a flash in the pan? And one of the things that really surprised me about our work in this space recently is how many hospitals have an Alexa team. They actually call it their Alexa team. And usually we're accustomed to healthcare being the laggard, but obviously they're experimenting ahead of other industries. So Lisa, you're the investor. Is this a big deal?
Well, I think it's about people looking from perspectives. I think it's a big deal. That voice will be. I am absolutely confident this will be an user interface. Everything, not just healthcare. And I think the reason your point that's exciting is we all have a voice. You speak. It's natural. You don't have any stuff to talk, right? We've actually made it harder with technology because the technology just needs voice level yet that are well not probably for healthcare. For some applications. Whether or not it's a investment opportunity as a standalone thing, I think is a good question. Because so far, I see it as a user interface that everybody will ultimately have, right? And individual technologies generally are not companies. They're technologies that are important and that others, that lots of people adopt. So it remains to be seen to me yet whether there's companies that build products that are intrinsically tied to voice, or themselves investable corporations from a venture-backed standpoint. There's clearly businesses that live here. Whether they're venture-backed or kinds of large organizations is different.
Right. So that's an interesting point. Like, yes, a big deal. This is going to be like a new interface we are all going to work with, talk to, I guess, in the future. But yes, from the business perspective, maybe not investable yet.
I think it's unless who's investing, right?
Yeah, who's investing. So if I want to ask you about this, because one of the things I love about voice tech is that it's not just about voice or natural language processing. It's really about artificial intelligence. Like, we're all worried that AI is going to take our jobs, and yet we've all invited AI to our living room, and Alexa's doing that for things for you that are tedious, right? Like, somebody had put country music on it. Don't feel like you have to raise your hand. I very quickly asked Alexa to change that, and it was so easy. So, what is the power of AI when it is connected to voice? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I certainly think that it has utility, particularly for hands-free operation, and also it does provide, I would say, a sense of comfort for people to be able to talk to the machine as opposed to interface with the machine in a way that's less natural, which is repeating commands. So I think it has great utility, but I think there's also concerns, right? Particularly privacy concerns when you're inviting AI into your home, and it's always running in the background, and when it turns off. There's some worries about what that is capturing in terms of personal information information, and also where it's being relayed, and then also finally control over the information. Camera companies can sell the information to third parties. So that makes sense. I mean, it's still a very uncharted course in terms of the legalities of how those machines will behave.
I think if they sold it, it would be nice and someone just have to use it.
Well, there's even the hacking, yeah. So, not to mention the hacking, because once you have that, there is a potentiality that you can be hacked.
And so, and yet, it's like anything digital. The always-on aspect is what makes this unstructured data useful. And like, I think, Lisa, you mentioned the Shazam moment. Like, tell us about that. Like, how do you see the Shazam of voice?
Yeah, well, I think, again, it's all about for what context, right, for what application. I mean, you think about Shazam, it recognizes sound, digital sounds, right? Ask, what song is this? But wouldn't it be cool if there was also the Shazam voice for stress, or for, medical conditions, or for whatever? That you can build not just recognizes what you're asking, but that also maps it to an issue, a problem, a challenge, a need, or whatever that, people have seen before. Do that, something.
Right.
And I think, I've seen a company that's doing this with sound on the heart sounds, it's not voice, it's a step sound that's building a Shazam of heart sounds. So it recognizes, most actors actually don't read that stuff very well, believe it or not. So to actually tell you, oh, that's a this kind of, but if you think about that from a voice standpoint, there's so much more variation. So you could come up with something interesting. We heard a little bit about that last night on impression,
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. So, John, we heard about one of the finalists in the Alexa Diabetes Challenge, which was very much focused on the intersection of diabetes and depression. And you mentioned digital phenotypes earlier. So, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah,
Unpack that for us.
I can
Fancy
unpack
words.
that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, the idea is, when the clinical data that's collected by an individual is one-off, it can be annual. There's very little sort of continuous pictures of someone. But, of course, in our day-to-day activities and how we interact with the web, what we search for on Google, what we tweet about, what we like on Facebook, all of these various sort of digital breadcrumbs basically give you a view of someone. So it could give you a view of whether someone's sleep deprived, it could talk about depression, it could talk about whether potentially you're sick from infectious disease based on the way that you're complaining. So there's lots of different ways in which you're sort of giving out health conditions, but that data isn't really used and captured in any way. So this idea of digital phenotype is trying to organize all that content, classify it using machine learning and natural language processing. And voice is just, as we heard from Lisa, the idea of voice could be another one of those inputs into the system based on your tone, based on the words that you're using. And yes, we saw a great example from the challenge yesterday where they're using machine learning based on the words that people are choosing to identify potential depression. Obviously, that can go beyond just word choices, but into tone and other ways in which people are interacting with tools. Even the frequency in which they're engaging can also be an indicator. So yeah, so this is one new potential input. Now, how you take that input and bring it into your clinical record and how it's used effectively is a whole other component of the issue, because you can talk to the machine can make sort of assessments, but if it's not being used to sort of guide treatment or intervention, it's sort of not that useful. And so that's where I think there's a big missing piece and really big opportunity as well.
Well, we're still trying to figure out, the last 15 years of the quantified self and like how to align that with EMR. I mean, we're still kind of putting it together. Most physicians are like, you want to share your what with me, right? And
we still don't have Fitbit data into our clinical record.
So now adding voice.
Your sentiment from your voice commands to your Alexa devices.
Yeah, it's far out, right? And we're lacking those sort of rich technologies that bring everything together.
We're also lacking the will to do it, because not just for healthcare systems, but for consumers. Not everybody wants that data. Not everybody even wants to provide that data at all, or even clients themselves, because most of it's in the reverse 3 months after the purchase. So I think, the voice thing's different. It's not, your voice doesn't go anywhere, right? But So that's why it's good, that's why it's interesting, I think it's persistent, but it's not entirely clear of I think that everybody's gonna want what you want.
It's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary because you can't put them in a drawer. It's always,
Yeah.
they're always there or not.
And I think the perfection of voice analysis is not certainly not documented well enough for mental space yet.
Right.
I think it's gonna be hard to distinguish between if somebody's depressed or just a New Yorker, you know. What, intonations mean, it's more than just words, it's intonations.
Anger issues or.
I think it's also important to think about how actual regulation would prompt or provoke people to want to, engage with new technology, right? Because people might not want to use the technologies that they are unaware or not completely comfortable with, ramifications of. But if there's strong regulation, clear rules and guidelines as to how the data will be used or how it will be secured, then that might actually prompt more.
Okay, so we're talking pie in the sky. Everything's awesome, right? Their future has great things coming. But what's wrong? We talked about accuracy, I think last night and in previous conversations, and this idea of moving from 80 there wasn't enough to get people to use voice, but in more recent years and even months, 95 and the holy grail being 100, which we know is not really attainable. That's what's actually moving people onto the platform. So you said something about there's no MVP in healthcare. So tell us about that.
Medical product. Yeah, I mean it's different. It's one thing if you were area and Alabama comes together.
Right.
It's another thing if you say you have medical emergency and it's your issue. Right. And so or you ask for one drug and another drug arrives. So we all even with our ears all the time. Right? So I think the perfection issue, you'll never be perfect because the person has to be out close.
Right.
And I think, and it's again, it comes down to, it's one thing if somebody's saying, I need to do it with a doctor. It's another thing if somebody's saying, I need 20 milligrams of, Synchro. I think the other issue is the distinguishing the voices, as I understand it, I think I'm wrong now, maybe the apps are changing, but if you're at home, and even if you use the device, and you can't decide what it is necessarily. There was an article yesterday about this parrot ordering stuff on Amazon when she left for work, I was doing it for parents that, it was doing it weirdly enough. But things like that, you have to be able to distinguish for sure that you're talking to the patient. Or the agent of the patient.
So the Google Home actually is just your voice, correct? It's trained, right? Our team actually has everything in Oscar.
Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting to see,
We have one person raise their hand.
Right. We have both an Alexa and a Google Home set up in that room, and so feel free to talk to them. And you'll see that Alexa will respond to anyone. And so that's, I think this is why some of the early apps are things that are, they're just proofs of concept that you can use voice for something that it might make it a little easier, but it's not transformational. So for example, Mount Sinai has an app where you can see if one of their healthcare providers takes your insurance. It's a pretty easy thing to Google as well. Maybe it makes it a little easier as a proof of concept. That's great. But we're not getting the transformational stuff yet.
Well, we did see some transformational stuff with the products we were judging. So for example, the solution to the problem mention of anyone who's being able to track the device was an authentication PIN. So essentially the patient or the consumer would have their own unique PIN and have to recite that PIN with their own profile. So
That sounds hard.
So it was a little clunky, but it is a step in the right direction,
Right.
for protecting privacy.
Can I ask a question with the look that Amazon's the look and then sort of iPhone technology that we're all potentially moving towards? Is that a solution? I saw something that's very tweeting about EMR compliance. Is that? Do you want that? Do you not want that?
I like that. They use that at the airport, cleaner.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it seems like that's the future. I mean,
Right.
It's like, what do we like about
Yeah.
That's the pressure.
John?
We're not seeing necessarily transformational examples because we're building towards that, and of course, certain technologies that exist today. But I mean, we're seeing it directly in improving the patient care right now in the hospital. We're piloting Alexa right now in the ICU. We're not connecting it to necessarily patient data, but we're adding in our protocols, our evidence-based guidelines, our scheduling, bed utilization, so we can quickly ask Alexa about who's bed availability.
Physician use.
Yeah,
physician use.
yeah, and like who's staffing this bed. I need this protocol for the treatment of this patient. And we've seen actually direct efficiencies that have been gained, and then in fact directly affecting patients' lives. So we are seeing that. So there are those examples that actually do sort of improve the work.
And enterprise use is so fascinating because I think any new technology, again, it's usually like the marketers love it first, and then you kind of work towards more meaningful problems. And in healthcare, you run into this roadblock with consumers and HIPAA compliance. I know Orbit is here, and you've done some great work in that space. But maybe the safest place to experiment is enterprise, right? Versus consumer. Was that an explicit sort of decision on your end?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, right at this point, we're not necessarily pushing PHI because of HIPAA compliance, but that would be the eventual goal. But you can imagine a world in which the frustrations that exist with EMR and the numbers of clicks to access certain types of fields within the EMR, you can override that with voice, or you can get right to answers. You have this opportunity to improve efficiency. Now, that's one way. There's different modes that will do that, but that's one good example. But also, the fact is that we have binders and binders full of just protocols that physicians have to find on a day-to-day basis. No reason why all that can't be digitized, and then through machine learning, and then adding in voice, you can get all that information much more.
It's a whole other way for doctors to ignore the protocols.
I would say it's for them to encourage them to use it.
So, I mean, one of the things that we sort of forget sometimes is that you have to feed the machine, right? So, like, how you feed the machine is as important as the machine itself. And this is where we get into the AI and ethics questions. And I read something really interesting. There was a company in Vancouver. They were handing out like assistants to people who wanted to host dinner parties because they wanted the machine to be able to understand conversation in a dinner party, right? Noise and background noise. So we actually have to train the machine. Like, we humans decide what goes in, and we decide how it comes out, and that has to be a very conscious effort. So let's talk about this. Like, are we gonna have like bioethicists for hire? Is that like a hot new job in 2018?
Perhaps. I mean, I definitely think there's a need for checks and balances, right? Because we're breathlessly, excited by AI and all its possibilities, but we also need to have checks to make sure that it's actually working for everyone. It's inclusive. So, for just even the example of the dinner party, who's hosting a dinner party? Who has the funds? It's definitely a certain socioeconomic group. So if you're only training your algorithm on training data that only represents a certain socioeconomic class or certain ethnicity, then you're going to basically leave out swaths of people. Right? So, like you said, the gruff New Yorker. If your algorithm has never heard a New Yorker accent, then that's going to be problematic because the New Yorkers can't really use it. Someone last night talked about his Irish friend having trouble with Alexa because Alexa was not as well trained with Irish accents. So bioethicists in terms of health actually make sure that in terms of the disparities that we already see, the health disparities that we already see, that's not transmitted into voice as well when we include voice as well.
And I mean, we saw this with search, right? And you still see it with image search. Like, if you're trying to find a picture of, a woman working, you're gonna get some really different things than like a man working, right? And it's, the Google suggest, and it's, the machine has to be fed. And I think we're so for what could be that we're forgetting the long hard work through unintended consequences.
Well, this has been a big problem with gender issues in my eye. AI is spent by looking and care is supposed to emphasize on that. Doctors that are men and things of that nature. So feedback, the information currently feeds back to you is extremely gender specific to that. And there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to make sure, you know, on all fronts, that data is correct going in. I think on the ethics front, there's also, you know, if you're collecting data for a health application, how does it get used? Could it get used for a commercial application, or vice versa? You know, you're chatting with your family and Alexa's making all that up.
Right.
You know, do you remember a couple of years back, it was probably 10 years back more, that it was Walmart, just its own AI, or what was precursor to AI, started sending information about pregnancy to a young woman, a 16-year-old child.
Right.
That was intercepted by the family because she was pregnant. So, yeah, that was pretty good. But
Right.
there's a no, you know, is that, you know, fair? Is that reasonable? How do you deal with those types of issues?
And there's also issues of employment discrimination, particularly from the United States. In the US, you know, the primary way we get our health insurance is through our employers. And if we now have information collection that could help employers figure out who's, you know, more likely to be sick or more likely to be high healthcare costs, then it could
Fail
raise
a drug
worries.
test.
Yeah, fail a drug test. It could
Wow.
raise worries about, you know, rampant employment discrimination. So I really see that there's definitely a need for, I think, better emphasis, and also a need for just clear rules and regulations. So the law, I feel, is not really the piece for the technological innovations, and that's we really do need to change that just to make sure, you know, consumers and employees who are adopting these devices will really be protected.
Right. So we have to rethink everything. Which is like when you start to peel that onion of voice. So, you know, again, when in the early days of search engine marketing, you remember like websites in 1999, where you just like put your brochure up. Yeah, Jeff's like, yeah, I think yeah. So there was like a brochure, you could really click on anything, but you could maybe call somebody, maybe there was an email address. And then there was this time when, you know, the early search engine optimization companies like, no, you have to be found. And so, and not just be found by anyone, but specifically through Google, which meant a combination of keywords and content and then links. And so, you know, I was like 5-10 year stretches of people buying a lot of ads because they couldn't be found, followed by years of rethinking every piece of content that your company put out, whether it was for a marketing purpose or maybe it was enterprise, think about all the content that's searchable inside your organization and what had to happen for that to be possible. And now, if we're going to move towards a voice-first world, we have to rethink how content is processed and how can you take it. Does it make sense to take text and just drop it into voice? It doesn't. Like when Siri reads you something, it's so painful. And so now we have to go back and rethink. So I want to make some predictions of what's going to happen. And the first one is like, there are going to be a bunch of like startup companies, probably not investable companies. And somebody who builds
People will invest in it.
People will invest in them. Okay, so these are like the things coming. So in 2018, at least one of you is going to be hit up by a developer. They're going to be like these skill shops. And yeah, we built a skill in 2017. Maybe we want a challenge. And they're like, we're going to build a skill for you. And it's going to suck because it's going to have no interface, like real true conversational interface. So then we're going to see the design of conversational design agencies pop up. And there already are a couple right now. So like thoughts on that? Like this is going to happen. Who's going to invest? Not Lisa. Don't hit her up for
I just
that.
started thinking about conversational design agencies and back to my New York theory of, you know, how the different conversations in New York versus in California run. Totally, dude. I think it's very bad. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, this is like the app phenomenon that, you know, came before, right? And, you know, we had lots of good ones, and then we had this stuff I call cracks, you know, stuff that's not that great. And but that people are so excited about the technology that they backed them and they supported them. They built things that then were sustainable. So we'll see that too, and I think that's pretty everywhere with technology.
Like
There's
analytics.
like total Gartner.
Right, yeah, you will see like you,
Yeah.
Adobe's already got like
Exactly.
a voice analytics,
Yeah.
you know, there are already lawyers who are becoming like the voice experts because they'll be a big lawsuit. You
Yeah, I think
know,
that's a normal.
It's a normal, like everything you saw in search and social is going to happen
Yeah.
again, right? But for voice.
Right.
And, but John, you actually are doing something kind of meaningful in between, like you were talking about like Uber in your current company. And sort of, like, is everything just going to be this sort of like fluffy add-on or not?
I mean, I think, these are all amazing platforms that are worth experimenting with, right? So we experiment on Brazil to help, patients get to their appointments. Amazon has this amazing platform. And, it makes sense for us to be trying all these things. It's not going to work in all cases. I mean, I think we'll see this cycle for voice, and some things will stick. Then we're going to see a whole new cycle around gestures and eye control and brainwaves. I mean, all this, you're going to see the same.
Your brainwave design agency.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
There
looking
you
forward
go.
to gesture.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. I think I would get on that.
We are being live streamed, so.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's, we're going to see this over and over again. And once again, these companies are going to tackle them, and we're going to try to build healthcare tools on top, and some will be worthwhile, most won't.
But John, you spurred me to think of something like in the hospital, like what a great place it would be at the bedside of patients to have something like this.
There's some
Because
great.
right now what you get is a 700-year-old button that never works, and it comes, and you don't know who your nurse is, and you may need something specific, and it may not be medical, maybe I just need some water or whatever. If you could just talk to the Alexa thingy, and the hospital can theoretically afford one per room or two per room, and maybe that would save a lot of money for a hospital from an efficiency standpoint.
Yeah, water and ice. I mean, like if you just did that would be
you're not
key.
So these are examples that are actually already in practice now. So the Alexa device, just like they're experimenting with Alexa devices in hotel rooms, same thing with patient access to entertainment, whatever that information about call, information about the hospital. I mean, in our view, actually, we think an Alexa device that goes home with the patient would be more valuable, because you could also use that as a tool around taking discharge notes and important educational information for the patient, retains a longer-term relationship with the patient beyond. So there's this sort of
who installs it? Is it like a home health aide, or do you expect the patient to install it at home?
Install.
Like get Alexa set up.
Well, I think generally, I mean, the patients that we experience with, like over 90% have smartphones, already have the ability to access, internet. Of course, there's important issues around access, but yeah, I mean, I think.
But the reason I'm asking is I had this conversation with somebody the other day. I said, like, the cost of sending a home aide in to check on somebody is really high. So what if the home aide had a new skill set, IT, it's home aide.
Well,
You're setting up the device, and you're actually you're
so this is something we're already doing with telemedicine at the hospital. Is
should we look for work for you?
Post-discharge.
I feel like it should be like a whole.
But yeah, of course.
Do you have any job openings?
Sure, you want to come? But just of course, it's such a natural opportunity around discharge, whether it's a telemedicine visit, asynchronous interaction, or really a chatbot opportunity for engagement with the patient to make sure that they've done the things that they've done that they need to do to prevent the admission.
I'll admit that I totally didn't get chatbots, and then now I realize everyone working on chatbots earlier on, it has another application, right? And so even last night there was something about the chatbot plus, so that's interesting. Well, I want to leave time for questions. So from the audience, does anyone have a burning question for our comments? Yes.
Hi. Yeah, so I have a question. How do you think that patients are going to react to talking to Alexa? So, or a voice-enabled system. Right now, all we ask is please play this music. Or why is the sky blue? Which are very objective questions, but health tends to be more subjective, and patients aren't as comfortable with just one answer. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, we think of it as different ways to engage with patients. It's not, voice is not going to work for everyone. It's going to work for a subset, and you have to be very. So you can ask very structured questions that specific, say, symptoms or types of answers that are really focused. Or there's of course amazing tools out there. There's work on some things, natural language processing, machine learning that allows for a quick assessment. We saw a great example last night actually with diabetes, where they were doing sentiment analysis based on how someone was feeling, and it was able to interpret double negatives, and so there is, there's a lot of advancement in that leaves a lot of ability for a patient to be much more free in their response. The adoption of that is a whole other issue, right? I think only some subset right now are going to accept the kind of device that is helping them at home like that.
I think it also depends on what's the topic, right? I mean, if it's like, I'm out of medicine, you just say, I'm out of medicine. People would do that, it's easier than calling a person.
Right,
But when they, they don't want to substitute for a physician or a nurse talking to them, and they really need some empathy.
Yeah, and it could also just be like a tool for like say seniors who are homebound to really connect with the outside world, like to sort of have a sort of companion to talk to. So, the applications could really vary, and it doesn't necessarily have to be as complex as talking with a physician and like listing all the ailments. It could just be having a sounding board.
Or, I heard an example yesterday where, the opportunity to engage with a tool, especially with, patients facing, Alzheimer's and ones that are sort of needing a constant sort of re-engagement around memories, being able to quickly ask Alexa, tell me about my last trip to France or something like that, and it shows photos of family members, those kind of things.
Wait, a slideshow, like your family slideshow of your
Yeah, it just pulls up anything, and then I think
Is it less painful than when your grandparents did that?
So there's real
Where's my daughter?
The
right, there's that.
The AI edits out the bad pictures.
Right.
Where's my phone right now? Yes. Interesting. Yes.
Yeah, I'm curious. So you mentioned the application for seniors, which I think is super interesting. I have two grandmothers that I think can benefit from it in actually really different ways. Like just using a mobile phone is really difficult. Right. Parents aren't working as well, and or a lot of seniors maybe aren't just haven't really adopted to some of the laptop, right? Have you seen any interesting applications that you think are showing that there is traction there? Because I also wonder. I got my grandma a Fire, and she hasn't really taken to it. So I'm just curious if other seniors have taken to it, or if it's like my same one.
Yeah.
Yes, we're working with organizations on the Chicago with patients at home. And actually it's pretty amazing that patients that are older can adapt to this user experience versus navigating.
Yeah, well, you don't need finger dice there.
Jeff from AARP is in the house. What is it, the Echo Silver? Am I allowed to say that, the Echo Silver? Yes.
How we didn't sue them for using our brand, but because it's true. Our foundation did a small, less than formal pilot with 37 users with Alexa, and 36 of them wouldn't give it back. One guy just couldn't get it; he didn't like it. He couldn't get it on Wi-Fi. So, anecdotally, once people adopt this, they love it. We've heard other stories to the people with cognitive issues or dementia. Alexa is infinitely patient. You can ask her what the weather is, what day it is, what time it is, a million times, except for Echo Silver. She will measure patience. But so we see interesting in-home usages around that. It's really just that initial adoption barrier. But in my experience with people ranging with the end of two that were my parents, my dad somehow figured out how to buy a webcam and install Skype on a Windows XP machine without calling me 7 years ago, so he could watch his, see his grandkids more often. So if you can give a real quality of life improvement to someone, you'd be amazed at what they'll adopt. They won't just pick it up because it's the newest gadget.
And I think what's cool about it is that we're using this healthcare device. It's really a lifestyle device. So we're hijacking your health, which makes it so that, like in this case, the adoption rate was extremely high. Our adoption rate for our technology is just not that high.
I think the Alexa show also has huge applications for the video screens that you can drop in on your grandparents at any point, just call it, and then it'll, they don't have to do anything. You can do like visit. I mean, there's the other side to that, like this, you want to be dropped in at any point.
Where's my daughter right
So
now?
then you're the other side is your daughter's like, oh my gosh, like right now it's dropped. Yeah. There's an airplane
That's
mode.
like amazing because they're not with the phone and not, like
And just
that's
quickly drop it and see what the setup is in the home.
Right. And
Talk about the privacy challenge. I mean, oh my God, and not just a security challenge, right? I mean, this is the thing that's stopped me from buying, any of that stuff to automate my home nest or because I just, I'm just really concerned about that.
See, for me, the opposite. Like my kids know that they can quickly reach me anywhere I am in the world just by quickly asking it. They can call me, and they don't have to do anything other than to say call. So,
I would expect no less from your children.
yeah.
Other questions from the audience? Yes.
Yeah, so being in pharma and it's just slightly regulated industry, just thinking through how controllable at this point and do you see moving forward is the message? Because I'm just envisioning trying to take this through a med legal review. They're going to want to know every single word that is coming back to the patient or the physician. And, is it 100% controllable? Is it, there's so many variables. So that's what I'm kind of working through. So I'd love to get a pilot going, but.
So that's what maybe we were talking about the cottage industries that are going to come out. That would be like these voice regulatory experts. I'm sure they'll be knocking on your door. But one of the things I think we talked about earlier would be enterprise use before consumer use. So like in pharma, one of the obvious applications for me would be like sales, right? So as you think about how you guys personalize your sales effort, now everybody has an iPad, there's a company behind that. So we have the right information at the right time. These guys are in their cars a lot, right? They're driving around. Like an internal voice application for sales would be brilliant. So I think you're gonna have to maybe think cleverly about what you test internally first to build up the regulatory expertise and legal expertise. Because if you start on the consumer side, it'll just be like, I'm sorry, don't do that. Unless anyone has a better idea. You could do a softball. I think you do something really softball, but don't do that. Useless.
Yeah, I completely agree with her. Right now it's just a wild west in terms of regulation. So I think to come out charging consumer facing would be a lot more problematic than something you adopt in-house to test out.
Or maybe you're partnering with, the startups that are doing it, right? Like maybe that's what you should do. Like get your venture fund or business development folks to think about who's out there that you would want to partner with. And this happened, all of this stuff happened before. Like when the iPhone came out, and remember, nobody was allowed to have an iPhone from work, and then all of a sudden everybody got the iPhone or some type of smartphone at work. And so, if we just kind of remember what the world used to look like, the same thing's going to happen. So however you got accustomed to smartphones will probably look a lot like how you're going to get accustomed to voice. Yes.
So the current voice platforms require you to interact and speak, right? Whether it's Alexa or whoever. Do you guys think that push notifications could be done tastefully in the voice world?
Tastefully.
Yeah.
We all who have prescriptions get push notices from our pharmacies. We use their app. It's time to refill your prescription. You can get that type of thing. Certainly get a reminder. Take your meds. You can get all kinds of reminders and notices. Have you made your doctor's appointment, whatever. Or, it's really using AI. We've noticed that you sound very stressed out. Would you like us to find you a yoga class or whatever it could be? So I think there's actually quite a lot of use for that. The question is how you ensure that the person is physically proximate to hearing it. At the time it speaks to you. So there has to be some sort of GPS sensing that you're near, I guess, or something, or a camera.
Facial recognition.
So some of the products we looked at yesterday had mobile applications. So even if you weren't at home, you would still refer on your phone. Yeah, you can find you wherever.
Yeah.
And it seemed to be really, helpful for, say, a diabetic who has to take medication regularly. So, for example, one of the ones that was demoed, when the person said, I'm eating breakfast now, or, what should I have for breakfast? There was a reminder, remember, you have to take your medication before breakfast. Have you taken your medication? So there was the second reminder.
Last time you ate that, you didn't feel so well.
Right.
And tasteful is the key word again, because is the device nagging you or helping you? Yeah, maybe, right. So moms, it's all moms and lawyers.
Or even like the great big brother-ish thing. You don't want to feel like you're being watched, and they're like, you ate 2 bagels for breakfast. That's bad.
Are you sure you
Yeah, you should want that
Wow. Yes, other questions? Yes, Elizabeth.
You guys talked a little bit about empathy and sort of where that fits in here, and that while you might ask your Alexa a question, you might want to go to your doctor to have a true conversation with empathy. Do you see that in there any potential for Alexa to get to the point where it does feel like a true companion and can provide that comfort?
Yeah,
Oh, sorry. I was going to say one thing, but there's actually a study that showed that people were more likely to be more honest with a machine than a doctor, because there is less fear of being shamed or feeling embarrassed. So in that way, people with stigmatized diseases, they could actually be more honest about the symptoms that they're experiencing and get the help that they need.
I mean, I think that's a whole other field that you're talking about. I think people are calling it emotive computing, from what I've heard. And so, I'm sure Alexa will get into that realm, but there's a number of startups also. I think we'll see Gmo, which is the personal robot in the house that sort of tells, it's more of a family member kind of concept with like the eyes that sort of change and get sad or happy. I think that's a whole other opportunity to build that sort of personal connection. I think the field is only going to grow to sort of meet those sort of needs, because obviously people will connect more and more to these devices as they sort of recognize emotion.
I think there has to be a balance in all these things, right? Because there's no substitute for something like eyes on you seeing really that you're not saying, or and while many things can be handled this way, not everything can be handled this way. And I think the idea that we're going to relegate tens of millions of older adults speaking only to machines and not humans is terrifying. Recognizing fully that a lot of people have nobody right now, so it is better than nothing. There's got to be some sort of balance between man and machine and machine and man. And I think the industry struggles with that. It's handle technology and they prevent that.
That's kind of
It's
important.
like say to you, you say you're fine, but you seem not okay. So or just having as well.
Wow. Yes.
So in this digital age, right, there are many of us here from manufacturers, life science companies. Yesterday, we sponsored the event. I think we're all struggling where we fit, right? Do we figure out how our products interact in this digital age and technology, and where we understand and help support? Where do we invest, right? And when we invest, what's the potential ROI for us as an industry? Because obviously the behavioral modification piece plus our product equals better outcomes, but nobody has the answer, and I know it's going to probably take some time in terms of where we fit. But I'm just curious to hear: is it just a wait and see and watch, understand what's going on and how we interact in that new digital age, or do we invest?
Well, I mean, as somebody who's from a corporate venture capital firm, I think waiting too long is bad. Have to be out. Most of the largest, companies, and I see we're talking about let's ad perform or something like that, they're not that adept in themselves at doing these kinds of things. So spend partner, investing is a path to partnerships, and a path to partnerships. But I think partnering with young companies that are having new technologies, new business models, new ways of doing things is becoming more and more common. And experimenting and figuring out that balance between killing companies with pilots and actually doing something is challenging. But if you wait too long, you're just the copying guy. And I think the value, how you count value, is tough in these organizations because there's ROI like I put in $1, I got back $5. There's ROI like I put in $1, I got back $1, but I built a business. I think you look at it from all those different angles.
So one of the things that we've seen in our research is that you have to decide whether voice is core to your product or if it's sort of a support to your product. So when you think about the Ford Sync system, which many years ago was solely for entertainment, and now most people expect their car to talk to them or respond to them in some way, shape, or form, whether it's through your iPhone or what have you. And there are absolutely therapeutics for talking to it would help. Like when you think about or talking to you, like the EpiPen. Right, like EpiPens, you think of the AviQ, that was like a very novel idea that like when you opened it, it was going to give you instructions. So think about like the opioid epidemic, like devices that talk to you and like, let's take it to another level that like you can talk to it. That would be transformational in urgent situations where anyone can become a first responder. And then there are therapeutics where it's like sort of a nice to have, maybe, or maybe it's part of a care plan. And I love what you say about partnering with others because, like, God, please don't do this yourself. Unless you've, acquired like an amazing team, there will be a lot of money wasted on really bad voice pilots. Maybe like it's just gonna happen. 2018. Let's talk in a year from now. Let's see if they can, you know, like a lot of people are gonna go out, they're gonna try it, they're gonna say it didn't work, or there'll be a major lawsuit or what have you. So I think it's like, yes, do it, but get the right team. Right. Right. Other questions? Okay, wow, I think, yes, one?
So I'm just curious, it seems to me that the underlying sort of infrastructure on which the voice technology will be built to support health issues, it's not there yet from a technology standpoint. What I'm thinking of in particular, I think Dr. Weinstein, you might have referenced this, is our health records. So health records aren't unified right now. There's no public unified health record. And I'm thinking about the managed care team for an elderly patient who's maybe seen 4 different doctors, or you know, maybe a drug seeker, whatever the story is. And it seems to me there's such possibility with voice technology, intersection of voice technology and health, particularly if somebody had a unified health record, in terms of supporting, really supporting.
That's not a technology issue.
No, it's not. But I'm asking if any of you think that we're headed in that direction, because it unlocks so many aspects. You know what medication somebody's taken, and if that's ever worked for them, and if they've taken it, they've been on it, off it.
Yeah.
And right now, and you said that they're more honest with a machine,
Right.
But if the record is there, you can't hide behind that. And I'm curious if any of you see any signs that we might be heading towards.
I mean, I think you're hitting the nail on a really big problem that exists in healthcare. So my husband is a doctor, and for like 2 hours after his shift, he sits and dictates notes. Now, will that be typed out by a person?
So probably.
Right. I mean, you wouldn't see those notes till probably a day or two later. So, if you have voice technology that's integrated at all levels, then he could just actually do his notes while he's seeing the patient. Right? For example, the notes could just be a recording of him and the patient, right? And when he writes the script, that could also just then seamlessly transfer. So yeah, it's a huge infrastructure issue. It's a huge cultural issue in terms of how we think of healthcare, because other countries do have universal health records. In France, where all your health records are.
Because they have one system.
Because
it
it
has
has
to
something
be
there.
let's take an Epic server and everybody else to integrate on purpose. It doesn't matter. You can put technology that reads brains. It doesn't matter. I mean, they've got this business. It's a business matter. Right. They want to build an ATM system for health records across all different systems. Right. Until they do.
Right, but we're building more technology on top of the system that seems to get.
Yeah, but these are still siloed systems. I mean, there have been efforts towards personally controlled health records to bridge this on behalf of the individual. It's still not there. Of course, there's been many efforts to unlock your data so you can personally merge it. That exists to a certain degree. We're still far off. I think voice is a great opportunity as a tool to access information. I don't think it gets at some of the underlying sort of interoperability issues.
It all comes back to the EMR interoperability.
There we go.
Piece of technology.
Yeah.
Yes.
Unfortunately, right? I feel like
But
that's
it might help is from patient input data.
right.
Or
Or is it
capturing data from the patient is more declared to go into your record.
Right.
Otherwise, we're
Right.
lost.
So now Amazon will have all
There you go. But if we have regulations, right, as to how Amazon could then use that data, then it wouldn't be a problem if Amazon had your personal data. It's a problem now because we don't have regulations for what they can then do.
It's only a problem if they start to influence elections or something.
Okay.
Yesterday I was sitting there watching the companies present. I looked.
We
I
get
didn't know. Does Amazon sell the listeners?
oh,
Well, yes, they do. As it turns out.
as
So if you're using one of these Alexa, apps for diabetes control, and you say, guess what, I need to buy supplies, guess where it's coming from. I mean, it's great if it's a closed loop system on the one hand, but I gotta believe people at other companies are very nervous about that.
absolutely. That's a great place to close our conversation. Thank you guys so very much for joining us. And thank you for joining us in person and via live stream. A few quick things, housekeeping. We've got some activities set up, so feel free to contribute to all of the whiteboards. We want to know what your company's attitude towards voices so far. We have some questions in the breakfast area as well. And a shameless plug, we are hiring a strategist. So there's a job description online at Luminary. luminarylabs.com, and if you're interested or know somebody who likes to work on these types of problems, send them our way. Thank you, guys. So